That's right, we are back on the Yamabisi, Yamabisi, Yamabisi. Been a couple months since we talked about this outboard. So for a quick recap, this is my $800 knockoff Yamaha outboard that I bought from Alibaba. Took a few months to ship, had to pay a few $100 in shipping, but it's here. It's a 4-stroke, long shaft. What more do you want? Again, in the first video I did of this thing, it ran really well. I really did not have a ton to complain about. Again, with an $800 price tag, $400 or so for shipping, we're talking like $1,200 all-in price tag for this. It is a 4-stroke outboard, brand new. That's pretty good compared to what new Yamahas and Mercuries are costing nowadays. The only issue that we covered was that the fuel line that they sent that goes from the tank to the outboard itself was very thin, easily compressed. We did have an issue with that while we had it out on the lake testing it out. Uh-oh. That fuel line gets pinched really easily and cuts off fuel supply to the outboard, but again, that's a very easy fix and no real actual issues with the outboard itself. So what's today's video all about then? You guys asked some really good questions in the comment section that I didn't have the answer to yet, but now we're gonna find out today. One of the biggest questions all you guys had on this thing is, how are you gonna get parts for this thing? You gotta wait months for parts. If you don't have any spare parts, it's junk. So I set out on a mission. I said, I'm gonna find out how easy it is to buy parts for this thing. Here's where it gets really interesting. What you guys also told me in the comments was that this is not a Yamaha replica, but a Tohatsu replica. I rarely see Tohatsu outboards in my area. I've worked on maybe one ever, so I didn't really immediately draw that connection, but a lot of you said this thing looks like a carbon copy of a Tohatsu 9.8. So I began looking at Tohatsu 9.8 horsepower parts, and they look very similar. So, 3 main objectives for today's video. Number 1, I ordered some parts from Tohatsu. We're gonna see how well they integrate with this outboard. If you can just use Tohatsu parts on this thing, that would be awesome. Second objective. In the first video, if you remember when we were testing it, the RPM sounded pretty low. A lot of you guys told me to check for restrictor plates. We're gonna check for restrictor plates today. See if there's any type of break-in safeguards or anything like that preventing this thing from going as fast as it should. Objective number 3, we're gonna bring this sucker to the lake. Again, it is fully broken in now, and we're gonna put it up against another very similar long shaft 4-stroke and see how they go head to head. Winter is officially here in Ohio, by the way. It's freezing, but we're still out here for the love of the game. Before I start stripping parts off of this thing and replacing them with the Tohatsu parts, I have not started this engine since I filmed the first video on it. What better opportunity to test how fast this engine will start after sitting cold for weeks and a couple months on end. I'm gonna put gas in it and we're gonna fire it up and see how quickly she'll start. Also, this is a good time to tell you guys, they are not sponsoring me, they are not paying me to review this outboard. I thought it was cool, I wanted to test it out. Anything you hear from me today is full honesty, my honest opinions. I'm not trying to sell you nothing, all right? Keep that in mind. Let's turn the water on and fire it up. Well, she still runs. Took a good bit of effort to get this thing started up again, but like I said, it's been sitting in the freezing cold for a few weeks, hasn't been started in a couple months, so what are you gonna do? She's still fired up in under a couple minutes. All right, guys, the very first part that we are going to try and throw on this thing is a water pump kit. This is a full Tohatsu 9.8 water pump kit, impeller, gaskets, everything. Let's break into the lower unit on this Yamabisi, throw our Tohatsu impeller and water pump kit on there, see if she still pumps water, see if everything fits. Let's pull the lower. All right, we got our water pump out. Let's take a look at what's inside. All right, here's our water pump housing and our impeller. All right, we got our impeller key and let's slide this off. Here's the impeller. And here is our Tohatsu 9.8 horsepower impeller. It looks like a perfect match. Also gonna slide off the base plate. Here are the 3 gaskets that came in the kit with our Tohatsu 9.8 water pump rebuild kit. Here's the Yamabisi gasket, and here's the Tohatsu. Look at that, guys. Picture perfect fit. That's awesome. Also I have this one on the bottom of the base plate, and look at that. It's perfect, guys. This is a carbon copy of a Tohatsu 9.8. We have this one for over here. Another perfect fit. Beautiful. Also in the Tohatsu kit, we have the outer covering for the impeller that goes in the water pump housing, and it's the exact same. They look the exact same, but just for the sake of the test, I am going to put the Tohatsu impeller in this Yamabisi lower unit just to make sure it still pumps water. All right, guys, one thing worth noting, this notch here on the drive shaft where the key goes, the Tohatsu key is just a hair too long to fit in there, so you'll not be able to use the key that comes in the Tohatsu kit. You would if you were able to put this in a vise and maybe just grind off a millimeter or two, but stock as it comes, the Tohatsu key will not work. So you'll need to hold on to your key for the Yamabisi, or like I said, you could just grind off a millimeter or two of this and it'll work just fine. So this is still the Tohatsu impeller and the Yamabisi key. We're gonna put it all together and see if it pumps. All right, everything is buttoned back up. The Tohatsu impeller fit perfectly. Let's slide it back up into our outboard and see if she pumps. Also, guys, one more thing I thought was worth noting. It does not appear that my outboard shipped to me with very much spline grease at all. Your spline grease is really important. You've got metal on metal contact where your drive shaft goes up into the power head, so I'm gonna go ahead and grease up this spline. If you guys do buy this outboard, I would recommend that you drop your lower unit and throw some extra spline grease on here. Okay, lower unit's back on the Yamabisi, and it's got a Tohatsu 9.8 horsepower impeller in there. Let's see if she pumps any water. Scratch it off the list. Tohatsu 9.8 horsepower water pump kit works perfect with the Yamabisi. All right, guys, next part on the list is our fuel pump. Now looking at the fuel pump, they're not exactly the same, but we're gonna see if this will still mount in the right spot and if it'll work. Let's find out. That is super annoying. She's squeezing out. It would have been really nice for this bolt to line up a little better with that indent, but what are you gonna do? All right, here we are. Now, it does look like the bolts will line up. It's a little weird with the in port being on the bottom there, but I still think I'll be able to make this work. Let's find out. So the issue I'm encountering here is this is the Yamabisi fuel pump. You'll see it's the full black and silver layer, and the mounting bolts go through both of them, so there's not a lot of threads on the end. You'll see on my Tohatsu replacement, it's missing this extra silver layer here where the bolt goes through, so I've got way too much threads on the end and I'm getting stopped up, and it's not securing the fuel pump to the block correctly. I am, however, very determined to make this work, so I'm gonna go to Lowe's and I'm gonna get a couple bolts with the same thread count but just the proper length that we need to snug this up to the block. I'll be right back and we'll see if it works. All right, I was able to get some new bolts at Lowe's that fit this perfectly. It's nice and snug. All the fuel lines are connected. In case you were curious, here is the bolt size that worked for me. Let's see if this thing pumps some fuel. All you had to do was change the mounting bolts and the Tohatsu fuel pump works perfect. I let this thing run for over 5 minutes just to make sure that it wasn't just running on the fuel in the lines and that it was actually pumping fuel as it should. No leaks. But yeah, we are rocking with a Tohatsu water pump, a Tohatsu fuel pump, and this thing is running perfectly as it should so far. All right, the next part we're gonna test is a Tohatsu 9.8 ignition coil. Ignition coils do not last forever, and it would be really nice to know if you can just pop a Tohatsu coil on this thing. Let's find out. There's something really weird stuck in the outboard. What? It's Raycon Everyday Earbuds. I've used a ton of different earbuds in my day, and I gotta say, Raycons are top notch, and they look slick. I've been using these earbuds every day for a week now, during my workouts, during some runs, and they haven't even needed charged once. That's thanks to their 32-hour battery life. What's also great about these earbuds, you can connect them to 2 devices at once. How cool is that? They've also got active noise cancellation, which is super hard to find at a reasonable price point until now. Raycon also sells these really awesome protective cases. They come in a ton of cool colors. Not only does it look great, but they also support wireless charging. Black Friday and Cyber Monday are almost here, and it is time to save big. Guys, go to buyraycon.com/boatbusters today. You're gonna get up to 30% off site-wide. Everything is linked in the description, guys, so make sure you go check it out. They really are incredible sound. I love using them. They're gonna be my new earbuds I work out in with. Make sure you click the link in the description. Check out Raycon. Now back to the video. All right, guys, so far at a visual glance, they certainly look very similar, including this orange pin wiring connection with this black ground wire as well. Now we can just pop off the boots, and here is our coil. And I'm not sure I could tell the Yamabisi apart from the Tohatsu if I tried, but let's go ahead and try the Tohatsu coil on this thing. All right, we'll reconnect our pin connector. That fits nicely, and make sure we get our ground wire placed back in the correct spot as well. All right, got our proper grounds. Let's pop the boots on and see if she'll spark. Looks like we have ourselves a rebranded Tohatsu here. Everyone's biggest concern was you're not gonna be able to find parts for it. You can't get parts for it. It's gonna take 5 months. Guys, these aren't genuine Tohatsu parts, but they are Tohatsu aftermarket. I bought these on Amazon and they were here in 24 hours. So I don't think parts availability is gonna be a huge concern for this guy. Please don't confuse the fact that I'm saying this is a rebranded Tohatsu with me claiming that it's the same quality as Tohatsu. I'm not claiming they're made of equivalent quality. I've never actually owned a Tohatsu, so I can't really compare like that. Maybe you guys in the comments who have could give some more feedback and comments on how close it looks to a Tohatsu quality-wise. But what I do know is that the parts seem to be very interchangeable. We're still rocking the Tohatsu fuel pump, water pump impeller, and ignition coil right now, and it's running like a champ. And yes, I know I keep calling it a knockoff Yamaha in the title, but it looks like a Yamaha, and Yamaha gets more clicks than Tohatsu would, so what do you want me to do? Okay guys, well, as far as I know, if there was a restrictor plate, it should have been here in the airbox where it connects to the carburetor. I guess I was expecting some sort of metal plate with like a hole in the middle or something like that that could have been removed or made bigger. I do not see any restrictor plates, but I am going to look around a little bit more because like I said, this is new designs and new technology I haven't worked with before. Another place I would have maybe expected a restrictor would be here. There is this little plastic spacer that was in between, but the hole is the exact same size as the intake. Nothing here causing restriction. I don't see any restrictor plates within the airflow of this carburetor, so I guess that's that. Carburetor's buttoned back up. Did not find any restriction plates in terms of carburetor airflow. Please let me know in the comments if I was not looking in the right spot, and I will gladly check again. What I did find, however, is this metal rod here is attached to the throttle cam. This moves when I adjust the throttle. There was a little bit more slack here on the other end. I made a couple adjustments and I'm wondering if I was not quite getting the full throttle that I should have been. Perhaps this was pre-adjusted to not quite let me get the full throttle. I don't know, but we're gonna find out when we take this thing to the lake. Fire this thing up one more time real quick just to make sure I put everything together the right way. Now it's time to bring this bad boy to the lake, see how the Tohatsu parts perform under load, see how my carburetor adjustments pan out, and finally, we're gonna put this old girl head to head against another very similar long shaft 4-stroke outboard and see how she performs. All right, Dan, borrowing Dan's boat here. We're at the lake, water level is pretty low. We're gonna be doing a speed test today. Dan's Suzuki 9.9 versus the Yamabisi 9.8. If you remember, Dan was talking up his Suzuki, saying that it's way faster than the Yamabisi, so we're gonna see today if there's any truth to that. Dan's gonna go solo, so we have as little weight as possible, and we can see what one person would get. Dan, what kind of boat you got here?
This is a 15-foot tracker.
15-foot tracker, one guy, 9.9 versus 9.8 Yamabisi. Let's see what we can get. So Dan, it appears the Yamabisi went how fast?
Just teased 15.
And how fast did that Suzuki go?
You know, it was on the high side of 14. To compare, my Suzuki gets about 15.
But not with me on it.
With two guys.
This guy will say anything.
So the Yamabisi wins by 0.1 miles per hour. That's the end of the test. All right, guys, the Yamabisi claimed the victory in the head-to-head. I appreciate you all so much for watching this video. What else do you want to see with the Yamabisi? Do we still have questions? Let me know. Have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy that time with your families. Have a good one.